All right, you guys, I think I've told you guys this before, but I'm not, I consider myself a little bit of a redneck foodie. Have you guys, I think I've talked about this. I'm not a big, go to a restaurant and spend $200 to, if you do that and you budget and it works out, nothing wrong with that. It just hurts my soul to do that. But those $10 to $12 places that have just as good of food, I'm all about that. And that's where, but donuts and desserts, I like finding good donut places. So my favorite place, VG's in Cardiff, you go in there and you just get a chocolate glaze or a maple glaze. Mary's is good. Are these from Holy or Mary's? These are from Mary's tonight. So the trick with Mary's is you go in and you just ask for whatever is the most fresh. Whatever and now a lot of the people, now Coy, you used to work there. Now, when people did that, you're hated their guts, right? Or would you serve them that?
I would, but most of the time it was but they're right here in front of you. Why do you want to wait 10 minutes?
No, I want to wait 10 minutes every time. You guys, wait 10 minutes. It is so worth it. This is fresh. This is a good one right here. Now, here's the deal about donuts and chocolate milk, which I grew up, and I have 3 brothers. My parents, were kind of cheap. And so we would buy the gallon of chocolate milk, and you would have to pour half of it chocolate milk and then half regular milk. So it would go further and stuff. So the real chocolate milk, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff right there. The real chocolate milk was almost too chocolatey for a long time for me because I was broke, or at least I thought I was. I don't know. Well, that's the message. We're good. Yes, here's the deal about donuts and chocolate milk. You know, in America, I looked it up earlier. I'm going to get this right. I looked up how many, I just Googled, how many Americans are lactose intolerant. And in the most American way, it said 68% of the world suffers from lactose malabsorption. Now, I asked Americans, and it said the world. There's something there. That's another message right there. But then what lactose malabsorption means, it's a fancy way of saying just your body can't break down all of the lactose that you drink when you're drinking milk or something like that. And if I'm slightly wrong, don't correct me. I just want to remain in ignorance. So the thing about that, and then something 6 to 8% of Americans are gluten intolerant. But 30% of Americans try to avoid gluten. And I feel like another 30 say they do and don't. That's our pastors. But so the problem with that is when you're drinking really good chocolate milk or you're eating a fresh donut and you're gluten intolerant or you're lactose intolerant, it means that you shouldn't drink those, but it doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. Right? And that's the big problem because it still tastes good even though you're not supposed to drink it or eat it. And then what happens is you take one bite. I'm going to take a small bite because I want to keep talking. And you take a bite and you're like, I already took a bite. I might as well go ham, right? And you just devour. You just go crazy because the deed's done. It happened. And I bring that up because it reminds me so much of this verse and what I want to talk about tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about gossip. And gossip, there's this verse in Proverbs that says this, the words of a gossiper, and another translation says whisper. That's interesting. The words of a gossiper are like dainty morsels. And what that refers to are some of your translations might say tasty morsels. They're like donut holes. The words of a gossiper are like donut holes, and they go down into the innermost parts of the body. But they're like these sweet desserts that taste good. You like them, but they're not good for you. And it says there that they go down to the innermost parts of your body, and so they go to your soul, your spirit, and they affect you there. So it's just like a gluten-intolerant person eating a donut hole. It still tastes good. It's still something and once you start gossiping, It's hard to turn it off, but it's not good for you. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Now, what is gossip? What is that? I feel like everything could be considered gossip. Gossip is simply this: negative speech or words about a person or people or a group that is said behind their back. Now, when I first heard that definition, I saw it on a few different websites. I'm like, well, that's interesting, because usually I think we have that one out of gossip where we say, well, it's true. But this doesn't say lies about a person behind their back. It's just negative speech. You could say things that are very true. Voltaire said, here, let me get this right. I can't believe I'm quoting Voltaire at a Bible study. But it says, everything you say should be true, but not everything true should be said. That's pretty good right there. And it's just, so any negative talk behind someone's back. Now, why we gossip. Now I was praying about what to bring tonight, what message to bring post-retreat, and I didn't really want to talk about this, and I kept coming to this topic over and over again. And I think one of the big takeaways from our retreat was how it brought us all together. You know, I feel like our community is closer this side of a retreat. Now, something happens when you get really close to someone. You start to realize that their breath stinks, right? When you get close to people, COVID did this. When you were stuck with people for a long time, little things started becoming bigger things. You started noticing things. And so what happens with community, as community gets closer, often there's little things that can happen that start to push back, some growing pains. And I want to be aware of that. I want to be on guard for that, because my prayer is this, that God would continue to bring us closer. And that through our community getting stronger here, we can build each other up. And that's going to strengthen what God does through this community in his kingdom here in East County. Now, the way that happens is we take the very things that could tear us apart, things that we're upset about or that we compare and get jealous or angry or whatever it is, and we use those to strengthen us and not tear us apart. And I want to talk a little bit about that tonight. But why do we gossip? You and I, we gossip a lot, and for a lot of different reasons. And it's easy to gossip. As I was praying about this message and preparing, I realized what a dirtbag I am, and how often things like this, it was just part of our speech. Part of the reason we gossip is because we all gossip. It's just part of our conversation. It's how we fit in. Like, part of what we do is we get together and we think, oh, let's make fun of some politician. Let's make fun of some sports team. Let's make fun of some person. And it's just something we do to try to find common ground with other people. We gossip. It can help us fit in. We gossip also because we're pretty dang insecure. And so gossip's one of those things that if I can put someone else down or do something in some way to make myself look smarter or better or whatever. Sometimes we gossip because we're jealous. Man, that guy, he drives that, dude, his parents bought it for him, right? He did it doing that, like, shady stuff over there, or we just say something to put down someone that is doing really well and it's making us uncomfortable. We could gossip because it makes us feel important, powerful. You know, look, I'm not supposed to say this, but I found out through my people, right? I found out, or I got wind, or I heard so-and-so, they're doing this, or they're that. Or, because we're all Christians, we gossip because it does all these things, but we get to use the whole prayer card. Hey, you really should be praying. I don't know if you heard, but they're going through something. That addiction, that struggle, that thing. We gossip as a joke. You see what that guy did? There's so many little ways where these words, these negative words that tear someone down, that we could say behind their back, they creep into our conversations. And it just destroys community. It hurts everyone involved. It hurts, first off, the person being talked about. Look, someone if you're gossiping, if I'm gossiping about Declan here, and he doesn't know it, I'm saying something negative behind his back, he's not there to defend it. And I'm putting him down, and he has no clue what's going on. And here's what's deceptive is I might say something bad about someone and then tell you, but I'm not positive that's true. I'm not really confident, but there's a chance maybe he did that. Well, you're going to live like he did that. Maybe I even say this, look, actually, I found out that wasn't true. He's not blah, 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 whatever it is. It's going to be hard for you to forget those things. Gossip sticks around, it lingers. Gossip hurts the person gossiping. Look, if you're a gossip, people know it. People know it. If you are like real quick to tell other people about what's going on, all the news, people are going to be slow to trust you and share with you different information. That stinks. That's not how we want to be known as. Proverbs 11:12 through 13 says this, whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Look, I know people who are gossips, and I know my secrets aren't safe with them. So not only do I not open up to them, but whatever they say to me, I have to take really lightly. I've had people tell me stuff, and I just flat out, I opt into not believing them. That's terrible. That doesn't build up a community. Gossip hurts the person listening. Right? If I'm listening to gossip, right, then it's going to affect how I walk, my attitude, how I encounter other people. In my family, there's a bunch of drama and gossip, and for a long time, it shaped how I saw certain family members. That family member, they don't really love us because of all this stuff. And I just found out later, it's just none of it was true. It was out of the other person's insecurity, and I feel so bad because I threw shade at this family member for a long time. Finally, gossip hurts community. You guys, here in the young adults, we're about three things: community, discipleship, and purpose. And the community aspect of that is a big thing, but it also feeds into the other things. But here, if we allow gossip, if we encourage gossip, then it's going to tear down community, and that's going to have far-reaching effects. Proverbs 6:16 and then 19 says this, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Later on it goes, a false witness who breathes out lies and one who sows discord among brothers. All right, this is not on my notes. Is Discord the name of that app? Yes. Huh. It brings people together? But here's the truth. Gossip is a symptom of something bigger going on. Right? Gossip isn't the problem in itself. It's a problem, but it's a fruit of something bigger going on in us. If I'm gossiping, the sin is gossip, but there's something bigger that's causing me to do those things. Matthew 15:18 says this, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. Solomon's talking there about those dainty morsels, those tasty little donut holes, right? That they taste good going down. And it's easy to have one and then be like, all right, spill the dirt, right? That with the new saying is, that makes tea, right? Pour the tea, spill the tea. I'm definitely not cool. But spill the tea. No, but then you can't drink it. It's probably better because coffee's better anyways, it's just, you starts going down, but then later it destroys. I want to look at an example of this in the Bible, and I need to give you some background first. And the background, I'm going to tell you, I have to paint with a broad brush. It is way too in-depth, and I can't properly sum this up in 30 seconds, but I'm going to have to. King David was a great warrior, and he loved God. He was also a pretty bad dad. That was his weakness. He was a really bad dad. And so there was a scene in 2 Samuel when we read his story and about his kids where Amnon, one of his sons, does something really despicable to one of his daughters, Tamar. And Amnon basically gets away with it. So then Absalom, David's oldest son, is frustrated. He's mad. And so after 2 years pass of David not doing anything, Absalom takes revenge and kills his brother Amnon. Absalom then runs so he can flee justice, and then he is exiled for 2 years. Finally, after some trickery from Joab, one of David's head commanders, they bring Absalom back to Jerusalem. But this is how it goes down. Absalom shows up. He's been gone for 2 years, hasn't seen his dad, and really his heart longs for his dad to see him. So much about this story, it stinks. And David doesn't do anything. He brings him home and he sends him away again to his house. And he basically says, you just go about life. And it doesn't sit well with Absalom. So he's there at his house for 2 more years. And then finally he decides, I'm going to start doing something. So we're going to pick up in 2 Samuel chapter 13. We're going to read chapter 15. We're going to read in verse 1. It says, now it came about after this that Absalom provided for himself a chariot and horses and 50 men as runners before him. So I want to give you this picture. Absalom would get out of his home each morning. He would climb into his chariot, and wherever he went, runners would run ahead of him, making noise, shouting, Absalom, the son of the king, is coming through. Absalom's coming through. Make way. And they're shouting. They're making this big scene about Absalom coming through. And this was just a demonstration of his power, his authority, his strength. He was basically beating his chest and telling everybody, hey, I'm coming, make way. So he would do that, and we go on, verse 2, it said, Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way to the gate. And when any man had a suit to come to the king for judgment, Absalom would call to him and say, from what city are you? And he would say, your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel. And then Absalom would say to him, see, your claims are good and right, but no man listens to you on part of the king. Absalom would set up shop right at the gate of the city. Now, this is a common place where business was held. At the gate is where it was common for different traders to come through and different interactions to happen. So it wasn't a weird spot. But he would be there and he would stand in place as these people would come and they'd have complaints, they'd have arguments, or they'd have cases they would need to bring to the king. He would intercept them. And he would say, hey, look, no one up there is going to listen to you. You have a case here. Your argument, your complaint, it makes sense. I wish someone in the palace would listen to you, but no one there will. Now, here's what's happening. He's spreading false news. He's saying negative things about David and his administration behind his back. He's not fully wrong. And that's where a lot of gossip bears weight. That's what gives us, at least in our mind, it helps us justify gossip. Look, I'm telling the truth. What Absalom had experienced growing up was that no one in the kingdom would look to him, would see him. Now, if these people were allowed to continue to the palace, some of them would likely have their cases heard. It's not, he is blocking justice in many ways and spreading rumors and gossip in many ways. But you see, the heart of it is because of his hurts. But hurt people hurt people. And that's what he's doing here, is he's spreading this gossip because he is hurt. And it's hurting him, and it's hurting those who are listening, and it's hurting his father, King David. Let me explain how. Verse 4 goes on. Moreover, Absalom would say, "Oh, that one would appoint me judge in the land, that every man who has any suit or cause would come to me, and I would give him justice." And when a man came near to prostrate himself before him, so a guy would lean low and bow and show respect to him, he would put his hand and take hold of the man and kiss him. And this was just a way of showing respect, right? There's nothing weird about that in that culture. And in this manner, verse 6, Absalom dealt with all Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole away the hearts of the men of Israel. That's a big deal. And see, these men are now placing their loyalty in someone they shouldn't, in a gossiper, in a slanderer. Absalom, don't miss this. What's the cry of his heart? To be seen by his dad. But because this bitterness has taken root and it's given like a new source of strength through all this gossip, what he wants is now expanding and getting bigger and bigger. And this is what gossip does. When gossip finds a fertile soil to land on, when it finds ears that want to receive and will continue, then the gossiper gets more bold. And the complaints and the criticisms of the gossiper, whatever's going on, those continue to grow. So Absalom here started with, man, I just wish my dad would see his kids and would carry out justice and would discipline us the way a dad's supposed to. And now it's building up with, man, if only someone would appoint me judge. And all these people are eating it up. I'm gonna stop there, but verses 7 through the next couple chapters, what happens is Absalom eventually convinces his dad that he needs to go to another city to celebrate his birthday and all these things. And as he does that, he just gathers all of Israel under him. And then as they gather all of these tribes, they come and they rebel against his father. You see, this gossip just grew and grew and built. And this nation that was unified under David, right? When Saul first died, the nation was split. And then under David, they came back together and they had all these great victories. And God was really blessing them. But now under this, under the gossip, under all of these problems that are building up, once again, the nation is split. So a rebellion comes. Absalom attacks Jerusalem. David gets out in time. But Absalom does some despicable things in the palace. And over the next 2 chapters, eventually, everything catches up with him. Absalom eventually dies, not a great death, if there was one. And David loses another son. And the nation is just there's a lot of problems that come from it. Proverbs 26:20 says this, "For lack of wood, the fire goes out. And where there is no gossiper, no whisperer, quarreling ceases." The opposite's true then. Where there's a bunch of wood, there's a bunch of fire. Where there's a bunch of gossip, there's a bunch of fire. And that's what happened in Israel. That's what happens in our communities when we let gossip just have its way. So what do we do? How do we stop this? How do we come against this idea of gossip, which just divides and destroys? First thing is we got to recognize what is gossip. We need to recognize what role gossip plays in our life. all the different ways that it subtly enters into our conversations. You know, it's not gossip if someone was telling me about a donut shop and I said, oh, you know, I heard so-and-so went to that place. But it can easily become gossip if I say, oh, I heard so-and-so went there and they were with someone that wasn't their girlfriend, a different girl. Or I heard so-and-so went there, but man, I don't know where they found the money. Or I know so-and-so, you know, we can do these small little things where we add gossip. So we need to recognize, here's some challenges. Are we talking to the person that's going to help bring a solution? Or can help, are we talking to someone that's part of the problem? Right? Are they involved in this intricately? Are we talking to that person with the right tone or attitude? If you're talking to someone else, are you avoiding names as best as possible? And before you talk to that person, did you talk to Jesus? Have you prayed about it? We want to recognize what role gossip plays in our life. And then, next thing we do about gossip is we need to talk directly to those who we have issues with. Man, if Absalom would have recognized that he was lighting a fire that was going to get out of control, maybe he would have done something different. But if Absalom would have went and talked to his dad and just really said, Dad, what is happening is not right, what could have changed? I was thinking about this, and God's good, and the way he's worked things out is according to his divine plan. So I don't want to ponder this too much, but King David, the prophet Nathan came against him a couple times. He said, whoa, what you did, he called him out for Bathsheba. And David responded well. When David wanted to build the temple, and Nathan said, no, God does not want you to build that, David responded well. And so if Absalom would have come to his dad and said, hey, what you're doing is not right, I really feel like David would have responded well. And so often, if we approach someone and we could just talk to them and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this. Is this true? Is this right? Is this what really happened? Man, we would have a lot of clarity. But it's awkward, and it's difficult, and it's unpopular. But we need to be a community that if something is going on that doesn't sit well with us, we need to be a community that goes and talks to that person. Ephesians 4 puts it this way. It says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it. Now, if gossip tears and destroys and breaks down, then confrontation from a healthy heart, carried out in a strong manner, builds up, this is saying. It strengthens and it gives grace to those who hear. Every single one of us in the next year, if you stay part of this community, I pray you do, then I guarantee you're going to make someone else in this community frustrated, maybe mad. That's part of life together. That's part of what we do as a community, is we get on each other's nerves. Part of that's good. Part of that's refinement. You know, another term for that is marriage, right? It's part of marriage is refinement. But it's what happens when you have life together. Now, if we have different options. You could be like this person, and you go and you just gossip about them from someone else. You're going to destroy and tear apart. But if you go to that person and say, hey, when you said this, when you did this, it made me feel this way. Or I heard that you did this. Is it true? All of a sudden, we have turned something that could tear this community apart to an opportunity that can strengthen and build up what we have going on here. I do this all the time. I hear something, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to call them. And I call them, and we get together, or we talk, or we figure it out, because I don't like, it just doesn't sit well with me, this idea of like, did they do that? Did they not do that? I just want to know. And if you did do it, then I want to call you out on it. And if you're like, I did it, and I hate your guts, and it is what it is, then at least we're clear. I want clarity. But I want to be able, there have been so many conversations where I thought someone was lying or doing something mischievous, and most often all it was a miscommunication and a misunderstanding. I heard something and they did something kind of like it, but not that. And it brings us closer. We need to be that community. We got to recognize what gossip is. We need to talk directly to the people that are involved. Matthew 18 gives us more solutions for that. I'm not going to go into it, but write it down if you're taking notes. Here's a big one, and this is probably the hardest one. If we're going to break gossip in this community, then we also need to listen to criticisms or challenges with a soft heart. The only way this really works is if Nate here, if I've done something to wrong him, he needs to tell me about it. But I need to be able to listen. I need to be a person that isn't like so worried or reactionary that as soon as he says something like, hey, David, when you said, whoa, you don't really, and I just start pushing it back on them. Or, hey, did you see what so-and-so said, though? I'm good. Or like whatever it is that it's crazy how often we take something that can build us up and, man, we just use it to poison us. So instead of, if this is going to work, we need to be a community that's vulnerable with each other, that's willing to let people speak into each other's lives. And listen, you don't have permission to do that with everybody. That's just not how it is. So sometimes you have to bring someone else. I've been mediator in so many of these conversations. That's cool. I'm good with that. But we need to be a people that are willing to say, hey, this hurt me, and a people who are willing to listen and say, I'm sorry I've hurt you. Proverbs 9:8 says, do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you, but reprove a wise man, and he will love you. And there's two ways to look at that. Like, all right, am I a scoffer or am I a wise man? That could be a little more complicated to unravel, but it could be more helpful to say, how do I respond to someone coming against me? Do I hate them? Or do I love them and receive that? Proverbs 19:20. I'm almost done. 2 more minutes. Listen to advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom in the future. Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. Cease to hear instruction, my son, and you will stray from the words of knowledge. Last thing we need, two last things. So we need to recognize gossip. We need to be willing to confront people in a loving, kind way. We need to receive it with a soft heart. We need to be quick to repent, whether you're the gossiper or the offender. Quick to repent. If I want to be quick to repent if I say something about someone. There's this rule I've heard, a few other churches have done this, where the pastor, someone says something, some gossip, and they say, all right, well, you got 24 hours. The person's like, what? Well, you have 24 hours to go tell that person that you feel that way, or I'm going to call them up and tell them that you feel that way with you. I'm going to try to bring you into it if you're willing. If you're not, I'm still telling them. And there's just like, we got to be quick. We got to be quick to apologize and to be honest. And the last thing is simply this: don't participate. or encourage it. And here's how we come against this, because I personally feel like I've been in a lot of situations where there's gossiping happening. Too many of those I've participated. I need to be better at that. Too many of those I've not participated, but I've not done anything about it. I've just walked away, or I just sit there like, oh, I'm just gonna play chess on my phone, and I just let it happen. That's not healthy either. If our friends were doing a sin, and that's what that is, if they're sinning, we should help them stop sinning. So part of that is saying, hey, I don't think this is great talk. I don't think this is good. I don't think this is helpful. You don't have to be like, hey, listen, you're a sinner, you're a dirtbag, you're a whatever. You don't, there's kind ways to do it, but you say, hey, I think let's change the subject. Let's talk about something different. If you are close to them, hey, would it be better to talk to this person about that? Don't contribute. Titus 3:10 says, as for a person who stirs up division, after warning him once and then twice, have nothing more to do with him. Knowing that such a person is warped and sinful, he is self-condemned. That's harsh. That's heavy. Now, as a community, I think the Lord, I'm confident of this. I believe the Lord wants to do something in us together as a group. I think the Lord can use this community to build us up in ways that no other organization or group can. But in order for that to happen, we're going to have to guard that, because the enemy is going to do everything he can to come against that. The enemy is called a deceiver, a slanderer. So this is kind of harsh. But I think if we're going to accomplish things that God wants us to do, it's going to take living differently. And part of that's not speaking in a way that doesn't build up. Part of that's listening in a way that does build up. Part of it means, hey, we got to lovingly, kindly make sure that we're not allowing gossip or a culture that divides. Can I have the band up? When we have that type of open communication and conversation, it's going to build you up. And then it's going to build us up. And then it's going to build the kingdom up. Because that's what we're called to do, and we do that well, synergetically, when we're all on the same page, pursuing the Lord. Will you guys stand up? I want to pray. Here's how I want to encourage you guys to respond today. If there are people that you have resentment or gossiped about, pray about how to approach them. And man, I wish I had more time. Ask the Lord where that's coming from. And if there's something going on, if you ate too many donut holes, if there's some bitterness there, repent of that. Then ask the Lord, is it appropriate, and how appropriately to approach that, and go do that. And then I want to challenge us. We're closer together than maybe we ever have been. Let's guard that. Not guard that in a protective, insecure way, but guard that in we respect and honor that God's doing something here, and we want to build it up. We want to take it a full another step. Lord, I pray you would give us ears to hear. You would give us sensitivity to your spirit. So many of these things, God, if we just relied on our emotions, man, we would never have clarity. God, I mess it up way too much. I can justify a lot of ugly stuff. And I don't want to do that, Lord. I want to submit to you. I want to ask, Lord, that you would come and tell me, reveal in my spirit ways that I've wronged people. May you, Lord, come and help us as a group to know if there's insecurities or jealousies or things that are causing this, and help us bring those to you. Pray, Lord, that you would help us as a community to have conversations where we can openly talk about this without getting quickly offended. May we be slow to anger and quick in love. And God, may you, Jesus, I really pray, may you strengthen this community for your glory and for your purposes.